Hello, BookTube. I have a semi-regular feature on this channel called Last Week in BookTube, where I spend an hour on Sunday afternoon collating some of the highlights and lowlights from what I've watched in BookTube the week before, and then make a report on Monday morning. And a lot of you like Last Week in BookTube. A lot of you do. Over the years, a lot of you have said you have pointed me to a lot of interesting stuff that I might not have found or that I might have forgotten about if I hadn't been for this video. And I like that very much. I enjoy it myself because I'm all about talking about all the stuff that I watch on BookTube and YouTube, broader YouTube. I watch a ton of that too. So I'm going to do a version of that for today, and then with the momentum that this imparts, maybe I'll go back to just a straightforward Last Week in BookTube next Monday. But I thought we'd go through just a few broad categories. With the iPad here, sort of some broad categories that we could talk about, BookTube related, this channel related, for the last week or so, and then we'll wrap up. So hopefully some of this will be of interest to you. Like, for instance, we can start with mail. With Dear King Tentacle. I leave my email on every video. You are encouraged to write on any subject at all. I'm honored to be in email correspondence with a whole bunch of people on a whole bunch of subjects. There are basic rules, basic guidelines. If you send me an email that's 5,000 words long, I'm not going to read it. I'm going to tell myself that I will, but my brain is automatically going to slot it into work. 5,000 words is unbelievably egregious. That's the equivalent of you meeting someone on the sidewalk, a friend on the sidewalk, and talking to them nonstop without letting them talk at all in response for a solid hour. So you meet them at 1:15 in the afternoon, and at 2:15, after you have talked nonstop for that whole hour, you then say, so how about you? The how about you doesn't cover anything in that moment. That is an act of stupendous rudeness. Same thing is true for sending somebody a 5,000 word email. It's not only is it going to be non-responsive, because if my brain slots it automatically into work, then it will go into a work type arrangement, and it's not going to fare well because all the other stuff in the work type arrangement is for money. That's one consideration, is, make it an email, not a personal dissertation. That's not going to work. Also, as I've mentioned a couple of times on this channel, I have very low patience for fact boy questions. If you're emailing me about the population of Austria right immediately prior to World War II, well, you could Google that. You don't need to ask me that. Also, if you don't care about me, if I call it my personal email for a reason, because it's personal. If you just fire off a whole bunch of questions, what do you make of such and such? What's your opinion of such and such? How do you rate such and such? And that's it. That's all. Nothing else. No. You're putting coins into a dispenser machine at a train platform. Well, I'm not going to like getting that either. No one would. But most people get that. They get how to email with other people. They aren't just completely socially clueless. And as a result, it's been absolutely wonderful. You absolutely should not feel that you are intruding on me to use that email. Not at all. I'm on the computer all day long. I work on the computer. I'm on the computer all day long when I'm not walking the bean. So, or when I'm reading at night. So that's a large amount of time. You're not intruding on me at all. And because of that, people send me their missives for Dear King Tentacle. I thought we'd go through a few of those for the first part of this Last Week in BookTube, this weird Last Week in BookTube video. Question number 1. Would you ever get another dog to keep Frida company? Frida is right here next to me. And Needlepoint Frida is right up there. And the answer is twofold. 1, I don't get my dogs. They come to me. I don't go out and look for them. Every time it comes down to it, I expect that pattern will change, and every time it works out the same way. I've never had to go looking for a dog. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that I certainly wouldn't be getting a dog to keep Frida company because I keep her company. She doesn't need... We are in each other's company all day long, every day. And if you are new to this channel and you are about to type in the comments field, well, but you're a human, and maybe she misses dog company, you might want to check a few videos before you make such a comment. Trust me, it's dog company that she's getting. So that's another consideration, is that she doesn't need company. If I were still in my old life where I was going to a retail job, packing out at 7:30 in the morning, knowing that I wasn't going to get back until 7 at night, or 6 at night, or something like that, knowing that my dog was going to be alone that whole time, then definitely a couple of other dogs, definitely. But that's not the case, and God willing, that will never be the case again. So it hasn't crossed my mind. The only time that it crosses my mind is because, of course, I will not refuse a dog if a dog needs me. Like, for instance, when I've been out on the road in Vermont or in New Hampshire or just with a rental car with a friend here in Boston, I tend to issue just a pro forma warning, which is that if we pass somewhere, a farmhouse or a dirt road or something other, and there's a box or sign that says free puppies, we have to stop. I can't pass that by. I need to take those puppies, if that's true, rather than risk random chance. Same thing is true here in Boston. If such a case were to arise, much like Frida did. Frida was a case where I was called and said, I need help. If that were to happen, I would not say no. Frida is very bossy. She's very mouthy when we're out on our walks. She doesn't like other dogs doing anything without her permission. But she's not aggressive at all. She's actually very affectionate in her own way. She's very affectionate. So it's not like it wouldn't work. With my pointer Malin, it wouldn't have worked. But with Frida, it would work just fine. In answer to the specific question, I would never get another dog to keep her company. I, first of all, would not go out looking for a dog, since they find me. And second, she doesn't need company. We perfectly fine company for each other. Then question number 2, why do you live in Boston? Isn't it one of the most expensive cities in the U.S.? It is indeed one of the most expensive cities in the U.S. As is true with all other expensive cities, there are always pockets where that isn't true, where ordinary people can live. Even in Venice, that's true. But it's rarer and rarer. I love Boston. I dearly, dearly love it. I love its feeling, its atmosphere. I love its physical arrangement. I love its history, of course. So I've lived in a lot of other places, and this is my favorite. So as long as I can handle the expense, I would like to stay. Then question number 3. Question number 3 got in amongst me. We're going to talk about this a bit. You've said you don't like it when a character in an action film is codenamed Reaper. Is that because you are, in fact, the Reaper? Every booktuber who becomes your IRL, that's in real life friend, stops making videos. The Reading Roads, Ben Sanders, Jennifer, insert literary pun here, Jason Harrigan, David Murphy, Michael K. Vaughan, and the list goes on and on. And the reason that I selected this missive from all the mail is because I got a number of emails like this. In the wake of an announcement that Michael K. Vaughan made on his community tab yesterday, I think, saying that he was stepping away from his channel for a little bit. Didn't say he was nuking his channel, didn't say he was done with BookTube. Just said that he was stepping away, and this caused a number of you wags to come out of the woodwork and start characterizing me as BookTube's Typhoid Mary. The minute somebody makes friendly contact with me, they stop making videos. I want to stress here that isn't true. I am not Typhoid Mary. There are examples to counteract all. I admit it's a disturbingly long list of channels that went away once they became my friends. But there's a long list of friends of mine who still make videos. True, I don't think we're going to hear much from Micah Cummins or even from Mark at Riches and Reads. But there's Britta. Britta makes videos regularly. Olive makes videos regularly. Surely that counts. There's also Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, who makes a video almost every day, I think. She has been here at Hyde Cottage, so surely that counts. And also, I have to, for this mail section, I have to finish up with something that made me laugh, made me cackle with laughter. Where one of you wags wrote, also, everybody you personally befriend on BookTube stops making videos. So I have a request. Could you personally befriend Jack Edwards? First of all, I want to stress, first of all, that I am not BookTube's Typhoid Mary. That's not true that everybody I befriend stops making videos. And second, I wouldn't want Jack Edwards to stop making videos. Yes, he is the Demon Smurf. Yes, he is my nemesis on BookTube. But ever since he made that series of videos where he turned a room in his house into a personal library, those videos were utterly charming, and I believe completely genuine. And complete genuineness, I'm not beating up on him here, if any of his fans are watching, but complete genuineness is not exactly common on either of his channels. I don't think I would be a mean old man if I were to say that most of his videos give off a feeling of manufactured fakeness. I think that's probably why he has 2 million subscribers. I think that's certainly an active element of it. But for instance, he did a video the other day, a 40-minute video on authors using pen names and the ins and outs of it. And large parts, I think that video also, it was fairly well researched, and parts of that video were also entirely heartfelt. And once again, as I always point out with Jack Edwards' videos, his comment sections are revelatory. His commenters love him. And they're not all just, young teen girls commenting about how cute he is. They span the spectrum, age and sex, and they really, really like his videos. His videos are pick-me-up. So if I were to personally befriend him, certainly I would want to interview him for this channel. I doubt that he'll ever come to Boston, but certainly I would like to interview him. That would be great. I'd love it if we were friends, as long as not one of his billions of subscribers ever comes over to this channel. I don't need any more subscribers. but even if that happened, A, I reject the implication that if I befriended him, he would leave BookTube. That isn't true. And B, I wouldn't want him to. So there you go. That is the mail. That is Dear King Tentacle. That is the mail section of this weird Last Week in BookTube, which isn't set up like my others. I know that. Then we'll move on to tech, because I've had a lot of questions about this as well. We don't have to dwell quite so long on it. But you saw, if you watched this channel last week, you saw that I got a lot of tech. I got, for instance, a Booksnote Mini C, a little color e-ink reading tablet with a pen that you can use it for note taking or artwork or whatnot. Incredibly sophisticated machine. I'm still working my way through it. But I also got somebody sent me a fuzzy microphone, a microphone with one of those fuzzy wind mufflers if you were to film outside. And also somebody sent me a little lapel microphone that seems completely foolproof. It seems like you plug it into the lightning port of your phone, you clip it on here, and suddenly, boom, you've got better audio. Not better audio tracks for when you edit later on, but no editing necessary. That would be great. If that were true, that would be absolutely great. And then the last piece of tech is something that I'm waiting on. I was kind of hoping that it would arrive today, but today is a federal holiday. So even though it's Amazon, it might not arrive today. And that is a little tripod. I had a little $4 tripod for a long time, for lots and lots of videos, and then I broke it. One of the metal legs broke, just snapped off in my hand, because that's the way my people are when we're under the light of a yellow sun. So I ordered another one. Fool me. I ordered another $4 tripod, and the main reason I did that is because it would be kind of nice if I could move all of my video filming to the new iPhone 11 Pro that I got in the mail from Larry Menderson. I got an iPhone 11 Pro, which is a far, far more sophisticated machine than the iPhone 6s that I used to film videos on. The cameras are a marvel. I got a Bluetooth foldable keyboard, so I could just plop the phone on there and try that out, try working on that phone. I got those two microphones, two different kinds of microphones, and I have a tripod on the way. When all of that is assembled and I start to play around with it, I'm hoping that it will allow me to offload all video filming to that phone, which has like 260 gigs of storage, so I'm never going to run out of room on it. If I could do that, I wouldn't need to worry anymore about dodgy audio on the MacBook. And one other thing, I have a 2019 MacBook that I really like, but it does not record videos. It does not recognize that it itself has an onboard camera. The onboard video taking app of Photo Booth doesn't work. StreamYard doesn't work. StreamYard will cut out in the middle of a video for no perceivable reason. But I really like the device. I really like typing on it. I really like the device. If I could offload everything to video making to the phone, then I'd be free to use any laptop that I want. Right? Because the one essential function of laptops that I'm using now would be gone. I wouldn't be filming on it anymore. So there you go. That is tech. I will keep you updated on all of that. The Dear King Tentacle and the tech will still be segments of next week's Last Week in BookTube, even though next week's I think will be more conventional. And then we move on to videos. Here I would ordinarily bombard you with a long list. I'm just going to give you a few videos this time around because this is a little bit of an odd last week in BookTube. First thing I want to mention is Victober, which is in full swing. This is Katie at Books and Things, her event where we read Victorian literature in the month of October, and that there's an endless supply of wonderful stuff to read. So it's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to watch those videos. I haven't made one myself in a few days. I'll have to correct that this weekend. There's also in terms of BookTube events, there's Nonfiction November. Olive at a Book Olive, I'll leave a link to her video. She made her announcement video for 2023's Nonfiction November. This is also a venerable BookTube event that she created to celebrate nonfiction, celebrate the reading of nonfiction. There are prompts. There are 4 prompts this year, as there are every year. The prompts, she makes them intentionally very broad-ranging so that you can adapt them to anything you want. But she also stresses in her video what I want to stress here, which is that it's not necessary to do the prompts or anything else. All that you need to do for Nonfiction November is to read some nonfiction if you read none, and to read more if you read some. And the urging that she gives in her video, it's wonderful. I'll leave a link to it down below. The urging she gives in her video is the same one that I have been making my whole life. I echo it here, which is nonfiction gets a bad rap. People look at it and automatically think it's schoolwork, they think it's dry, they think it's work. And it's not. If you have encountered nonfiction that has struck you that way, you have encountered the wrong nonfiction. There's an endless variety of it out there, and it is more satisfying than the made-up stories. Just plain and simple. It just simply is. It's just a question of getting the right recommendations. Now, during Nonfiction November, I would imagine that Olive is going to bombard you with recommendations. I certainly am. So you might want to check out earlier years of Nonfiction November videos for more recommendations, but definitely think about joining in for Nonfiction November. And then the last video that I wanted to mention is a relatively recent one. I'll leave a link to it. It's from Ollie at Criminolly. A video in which he announces that he is once again going on a book buying ban, a read what you own ban of getting new books. This has been a periodic fad on BookTube, carried to operatic levels by Michael K. Vaughan with his 500 book challenge, where he is reading 500 books he already owns before he buys any new books. Ollie's done this before, and his video is terrific, where he talks about doing it again, about how books pile up at absurd amounts if you don't do something like this. And every time that somebody makes a video like this, whether it's Ollie or Michael K. Vaughan or anybody else, whenever anybody makes a read what you own challenge of this kind, I always get bombarded with questions. What do you think of this? What do you make of this? Often by people who want some sort of backup for their own dislike of something about the idea of telling yourself that you're not going to buy any books, a book buying ban of any kind. So a lot of people that email me don't like that feeling. Something about it they don't like, and they kind of want me to make an argument for it. And once upon a time, I might have done that. But in the last couple of years, largely through watching Ollie's channel and also from Michael K. Vaughan, and from emails from people and responding to their videos, I have become aware of the full extent of this problem. I was not aware of it before. I have been in touch with people in email or on Voxer or watched the comments unfold who have hundreds of books in their house that they haven't read. Hundreds. In a few cases, thousands. Thousands of books that they haven't read. Thousands of books that they haven't read. I've emailed with a couple of people who have 1,000 books at least that they haven't read, and that they have not read those 1,000 books for over a decade. House to house, apartment to apartment. You've just been lugging around and storing and shelving thousands of books that you don't read. Year after year, while continuing to get more books. Once I became aware of the scope of the problem, I'm all in favor of read what you own challenges of any kind. I had no idea that was the case. I had no idea that anyone could have even one book for 10 years without getting around to reading it. That's absurd. That's absolutely absurd. But to have thousands of unread books that you just sort of, look at every day? No, that is... I know the common thing that we always say on BookTube is that collecting books, buying books, and reading books are two different hobbies. I agree. But reading books is healthy. hoarding books, squirreling away hundreds or even thousands of books that you haven't read in years is not healthy. That is clearly not healthy. So, I'm afraid I can't help those people who are looking for me to furnish them with an argument. I'm all in favor of read what you own. All in favor of it. As you know, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, or if you remember any of my library tours, the vast percentage of the books that I have here at Hyde Cottage are books that I have read. The vast percentage, it's only a small, tiny fraction that I haven't read. The ones that come in the mail, or the ones I get at the Brattle, those are the ones I haven't read. All the rest of them I have, and I either reread them or I get rid of them. So if you are one of those people who has hundreds and hundreds of books that you haven't read in years, well, then stop buying books. Obviously that is the answer. Stop buying books. Join Ollie he has a couple of cohorts too. Join him in this Read What You Own challenge. There are tiers. There's a checklist. You can participate in this so that you won't feel alone while you deny yourself the unhealthy habit of coming home with piles of books that you're not going to read. I mean, honestly, if we were talking just a little here and there, well, then I would be against a book buying ban of any kind. But the impression I've got from the people who have emailed me over the years is horrifying. So any attempt to correct it is fine by me. So those are the videos. And then I'll finish up this odd Last Week in BookTube with the news. Which has been on my mind nonstop, of course. News from the Middle East has been on my mind nonstop since Saturday. I'm sure you all know the story. On Saturday, the terrorist group Hamas launched a coordinated attack on Israel. Bulldozers, paragliders, bombs, and they killed a lot of people. The number keeps going up as wounded people die. And they also kidnapped a lot of people. And I don't know how much of this story you've exposed yourself to, but there's unbelievably wrenching, heartbreaking video all over the internet of people being kidnapped, of people being brutally murdered. The Hamas operatives who did this took those people back into Gaza. And the world reacted with outrage. And the outrage, most of it, I'm going to say, out of dogged optimism, I'm going to say that most of it was just common human compassion. There were polarized opposite ends of the spectrum of that reaction. There always will be, especially in the 21st century. There always will be. So you can, if you do, I don't advise it, but you could go online and see people cheering on Hamas. Because, including a group of Harvard students who made an open letter and put their names on it. There's the whole thing about these extreme reactions on either side. Is that the only reason I know about them is because they're on the internet, which means your grandchildren are going to see them. Your future employers are going to see them. On one end of the reaction, you have people saying, well, Israel's been conducting a brutal occupation, an apartheid of Palestine for the whole of the 20th century. And it's been ruthless and relentless. And Hamas is just striking back from that. And so we cheer them on. That is one extreme reaction. And then the other extreme reaction is the barbarity of the acts of these Hamas terrorists over the last couple of days is so unbelievable that an outrageously over-proportioned reaction is in order. Keep in mind, Gaza is completely helpless. I know they've launched rockets and they went into Israeli territory and kidnapped Israelis, but Gaza, the territory, is completely helpless. There is no escape by sea. It is bordered and cordoned by barriers on all sides by land. It's entirely dependent on Israel for material existence. Everything in Gaza is provided by Israel. Ordinary people have had to sort of reel from the emotional impact of this and find a place in that middle ground, not on one side and not on the other. Unfortunately, that hasn't turned out to be true on either side of the perpetrator or the victim. Hamas is totally unrepentant, and I believe sometime in the course of the next 7 days will start to parade the dead bodies of some of their hostages. I believe they will do that. They've made a lot of comments since Saturday, especially in response to the United States, which has sent the USS Gerald Ford carrier group steaming to the Mediterranean. Hamas's reaction to that, their specific reaction to that, was, "We are not afraid." The USS Gerald Ford alone has enough nuclear warheads on board to devastate the entire surface of the Earth. One of its nuclear warheads has roughly 300 times the firepower of the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. That's just one of the missiles. It has a whole complement of missiles, and it is the biggest ship in a carrier group of other ships who all have armaments of similar extent. So when Hamas says we're not afraid, you should be, because if Hamas makes some sort of weird, we're all going to die anyway, today is a good die today drone strike, or God forbid, a coordinated drone strike on the USS Ford, this whole thing is going to change. This whole thing is going to get much, much, much worse. I know Joe Biden is an ordinary guy. He's a normal, decent person. He's not a lunatic. But if the USS Gerald Ford is bombed, this situation is going to, as the commentators in the UK say, go pear-shaped right away. But that's one reaction. And unfortunately, Israel has also had a reaction that you may have seen in the news. They have announced their official response to this. And that is to conduct what they call a total siege on Gaza. No electricity, no water, no food. There are no shelters. And Gaza, the whole time that all of that stuff is being deprived, Gaza will be ruthlessly bombed from land and sea, and also there will be a land invasion. Gaza is home to 2.2 million people. 1.99 million of those people are innocent. They are completely innocent. They are completely innocent of these attacks or anything else. They don't like Hamas and are not part of Hamas. 1.99 million of those 2.2 million people are completely innocent and are now going to go through a meat grinder where you have no water, you have no food, you have no electricity, and you have no shelter because the apartment building you're living in, cheek by jowl with 200 other Palestinians, is about to be reduced to rubble. That is the phrase of Israel's prime minister. It's entirely likely, unless cooler heads prevail, that Gaza will simply be wiped out, that it will be leveled. God only knows what the people who live there will do. The Gaza militants, the Gaza terrorists who live there have underground bunkers. The ordinary people in Gaza are not allowed to even see, much less enter. Those bunkers probably have radios, food and water supplies, given to them by international allies whose fingerprints are all over this attack. That is the news this week. That Hamas says it is not afraid of the USS Gerald Ford. Any sane person would be afraid of the USS Gerald Ford. It is the biggest warship in American history, and it has the ability to destroy all life on Earth. Just it itself does. To say nothing of all of the carriers that are with it, all of the cruisers that all have nuclear capability, and they're all going in that group. Of course, it's terrifying for a terrorist organization that has just committed suicide, effectively, to say they're not afraid of the USS Gerald Ford. That is, of course, that should be terrifying to anybody. And it's terrifying also Israel's official response, which is we're going to bulldoze Gaza. Now, some Israeli military officials who are extremely practiced professionals, some of them have said, well, we're not like our enemy. We care about civilian casualties and we'll try to keep them to a minimum. There isn't a way to do that. I'm sure that some of you have seen the footage of some of the bombing. The bombing's been going on all day, all night. There is no way that you can protect civilians from that kind of bombing. And also, I might point out that if you cut electricity, water, and food, you are targeting civilians. You are targeting innocents. I know you're targeting Hamas as well, but that is a horrifying reaction. The news, in its glib way, has characterized these attacks as Israel's 9/11. And certainly, whether or not you agree with that rather cavalier characterization, certainly the outline is the same. Certainly Israel is doing the same thing the United States did in response to 9/11, which is to respond to an extremely coordinated, specific terrorist attack with an uncoordinated, massive over-retaliation. In the United States' case, it was to wage war unprovoked on two different countries for decades, at the cost of who knows how many millions dead. And in Israel's case, the massive overreaction, the bloodlust overreaction, is to carpet bomb Gaza while also depriving its citizens of all the means of living, or also the means of egress. They're not allowed to leave. So in that sense, it very much is Israel's 9/11. And we can just hope, I guess there's no hope for it, but to just hope that somehow or other this calms down. A number of countries have come forward and said, please let us negotiate. Please let us go in and get on the ground and talk so that this stops. Otherwise, it will just keep escalating. I don't think those people are being listened to. So the grim reality here is that I think this is going to escalate all week long. And that's the news, of course, that's been on my mind the whole time. And one of the aspects that's on my mind does wrap around to BookTube, which is, I automatically wondered, is it belittling or insulting somehow to make BookTube videos while all this is going on the other side of the world? Is it wrong to be, joking and joshing and recommending books to each other when we all know this is happening? This is absolutely horrific. People being dragged out of their homes, babies being dragged away from their parents. The footage of people being kidnapped is unbelievable, and none of those people are going to live. Some of the pictures that I saw of people who had been kidnapped, they're clearly dead already. It's clearly footage of dead bodies. Their relatives, their parents, their grieving relatives are on camera begging for the release of their children, most of whom were at a rock concert. And that's just the cognitive dissonance of people watching the news. Those people have to have seen the same footage I did. They can see a dead body when they see one. They know their child's not alive, but they're begging, please put my child on the phone, please let her go unharmed. When I was looking at all that news, I was automatically wondering, is it right to make BookTube videos while all this is going on? And I emailed Daniel at Guilty Feet, a great booktuber. You all watched his channel. He was also responsible for the Have Steve Reddit Challenge, Season 1 and Season 2. And he's not dealing with violence on the other side of the world. He's dealing with violence where he lives. And I asked him, just point blank, does this profane the whole thing? Does this profane the whole subject? To make BookTube videos while this is going on in your home? And he wrote back with amazing compassion. I don't know that I would have equaled his compassion, and said, no, BookTube, you put it rather well, that BookTube is an ideal community. That we aspire to BookTube. We don't actually create BookTube, we aspire to it. We aspire to an ideal community in which we talk to each other, lift each other up, talk in all sorts of grim circumstances, talk our way through all sorts of grim circumstances. I am hoping that vision is strong. I'm hoping that vision is correct, because I'm going to go by it. I thought very severely, when I was looking at the news, last night especially, I thought very seriously, how can you make videos in a situation like this? How can you possibly? I'm going to keep doing it. And keep an eye on the news. So that's a rather grim note to end with. But those are sort of the broad categories that I'm doing for Last Week in BookTube this week. And I will try to do this next week, only it'll be far more conventional. It'll be me just recommending videos to you, without any discursions about me being BookTube's Typhoid Mary, or about this situation in the news, especially since I think, unless I'm drastically wrong in reading international events, I think the news next week at this time on this subject will be incalculably worse than it is today. So I think probably next time I'll just leave it out. You all know the news. You can see the headlines as well as I can. I just had to mention it because the question of whether or not to make videos during all of this was on my mind. I was very relieved when Daniel gave me his thumbs up. That meant a lot. So there you go. That's Last Week in BookTube. I'm going to wrap this up for now. I just want to stress not any of the grim stuff and not the read what you own challenge stuff, but also I mainly want to end by stressing that I am not Typhoid Mary. I am not causing people to leave BookTube just because they come to wine and calzones at Hyde Cottage. I want you all to come for wine and calzones at Hyde Cottage. I've got to resist the urge to have this tattoo on me that I'm the kiss of death for BookTube channels. Anyway, I'll wrap this up for now. Just a ramble. Next week will be more structured, I promise. So I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.